not going to put our finger on anything that has to do with the Justice Department or their decision.
He was not saying this is going to happen. Obviously, the process is going to play out. There's an ongoing investigation that should be swift. It should be thorough, and obviously, it will determine what the outcome is here. And he certainly respects that.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Go ahead.
Just want a couple of questions. So on the Atlanta shootings, do you see some need for the White House and the administration to create perhaps a point person to address anti-Asian violence, even though the shooting hasn't necessarily been linked? It is a concern that the president has raised. Is there some move afoot like that?
Well, first I would say that it's important to note that the president, we've put out a few updates today, but just to reiterate, he was briefed overnight. He obviously talked to the Attorney General and the FBI Director this morning, and we're continuing to monitor the situation. As you touched on, local and federal law enforcement are still determining a motive. They had their own press conference this morning. That doesn't change the fact that this news was horrific, and broadly speaking, there has been an increase, as you have noted, and we have all seen, in attacks and crimes and hate crimes as well, and other circumstances against Asian Americans. And that's why he raised this in his address when he delivered in his primetime address on Thursday night. He did sign an executive order, and actually there are ongoing processes, including from the Department of Justice, where they're doing listening sessions now. HHS will start those soon. He signed that executive order within the early part of his administration, and he's also asked Susan Rice and Cedric Richmond to do listening sessions as well, so that we can hear from the community and determine how that should impact policies moving forward. Broadly speaking, as you know, there's also an ongoing review of domestic violent extremism that is wide-ranging. That is a 100-day review that will take a look at a range of issues, and that will also be a longer-term strategic, comprehensive look at how that impacts our society, and this will certainly be a part of that.
Just wanted to follow up on North Korea. So
Sure.
there are talks that are happening with the Chinese this week. What are you looking for from China in terms of its response to North Korea? The U.S. military expects North Korea to resume testing of ICBMs. What would that mean for your review of those policies?
I don't think we're going to get ahead of their testing. If they decide to test, I will say that part of our strategy as it relates to the denuclearization of North Korea is, of course, to lead with diplomacy and engagement with partners in the regions, even some where we have at times adversarial relationships, is a key part of that strategy. And so the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense were also just recently in South Korea, a meeting with also with the Japanese. They are key partners as we discuss security in the region, and certainly the threats from North Korea are part of that. And obviously that will be part of the discussion with the Chinese. But the strategy is to coordinate and discuss with partners in the region so that we can determine what the path forward looks like.
And then finally on Mexico, since we're talking about the border, but Mexico and Canada are also looking for doses of vaccines. There's some reporting out saying that those would be at the top of the list. Can you confirm those reports? Can you say, there's a growing demand? I keep asking this question, it's like there's so much demand out there, and the level of vaccination is so disparate in the advanced economies and in developing countries, but also in neighboring countries like Canada and Mexico. Can you just say what your strategy is to get vaccines out to the rest of the world so that there aren't, increases in variants and all the other negative, consequences of not getting the pandemic under control?
Sure. Well, Andrea, our first strategy is, of course, to ensure the American people are vaccinated, and 1,400 people a day are still dying in the United States of America. And so we are still in the midst of fighting a war against the pandemic right here. Now, we have vaccinated more people in this country because of access, because of supply, because of operational capacity than virtually any other country in the world. And we also want to be, the president wants to be, we all want to be contributing members of the global community and getting the pandemic under control. Any decision we make about requests, and we have them from around the world, as you well know, and are tracking, will ensure that we're able to still quickly vaccinate the American people, as that remains our top priority. We have received requests from both Mexico and Canada and are considering those requests carefully, but I don't have any update for you on whether they will be granted and a timeline for that. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jim. Following up on Darlene's question about the Russians who are clearly very upset, what did the president actually mean when he answered yes or something like that to, is President Putin a killer? Was he talking literally or was he talking metaphorically?
I don't have anything more for you to provide analysis on that, but I can say
The Russians are extremely upset about it. So.
he also repeated a story that he told in his own book about a conversation he had with President Putin, and as was evident in the readout we provided of the call the president had with President Putin, he does not hold back on his concerns about what we see as malign and problematic actions, whether it is engagement in the 2020 intervention in the 2020 election interference, a report obviously released just yesterday, their involvement in the poisoning of Alexei Navalny, ongoing reviews that are related to bounties on troops, and of course the SolarWinds hack. So he's not going to hold back in his direct communications, nor is he going to hold back publicly. And we have still found ways to work together on areas where we have mutual interests, including the extension of New START by 5 years. So that's diplomacy in action there. Go ahead.
Sorry, one more, if you don't mind. From moving from Russia to China. So while Secretaries Blinken and Austin are out in Asia, there's an elephant in the room, which would be the growing talk about China having designs on Taiwan. Is the US publicly committed to defending Taiwan, come what may?
I don't think I have anything new on our policy as it relates to Taiwan for you today. Obviously, there are a range of topics, including Taiwan, that will be discussed in these conversations in Anchorage that are happening over the next 2 days, if I'm getting the time frame correct. And I'm sure the Secretary of State and their National Security Advisor will come out and engage with the press when those meetings conclude. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Back to that DNI report. There's an assessment in there that Moscow will continue to try to influence U.S. elections, and it said the reason is that the Kremlin has concluded that it's a manageable risk. And so I'm wondering, I anticipate that you're cooking up some sanctions down the road, and we've got a review and whatnot, and we've heard some sharp language from the president. But it seems like Moscow has concluded that they can handle that, and so how will you keep them from interfering in the third consecutive presidential election?
Well, first, the president's relationship and this administration's relationship with the Russians will be very different from what we've seen over the last 4 years, and we've already seen evidence of that from his first phone call with President Putin. President Biden has been clear that the United States will also respond to a number of destabilizing Russian actions. And as you know, and as we've already talked about, we have requested new or declassified intelligence community assessments in 4 such areas and plan to respond to each of them in the coming weeks. Those are ongoing. I would say that the Russians have intervened or attempted to intervene in elections for many years. I mean, long before 2016. We certainly are very eyes wide open about that and fully aware of that. But they're going to pay a price, as the president conveyed last night. We are not going to look the other way, as we saw a bit over the last 4 years, and we will continue to press them on their actions.
And there's some language in that report. It said proxies for President Putin have undergone a disinformation or underwent a disinformation campaign, in particular alleging or pushing out disinformation of corruption of President Biden, and also the report specifically mentions his son. So what is his reaction to Putin and his proxies going after him personally?
That was not our first awareness of that. I think we all saw that play out in public. So the president felt it was important to release the unclassified version of this report, which, as you know, the assessment was done under the last administration. It is evidence of the hard work of the men and women in the civil service who keep government functioning. But it's important for people in this country, members of Congress, other countries to understand what their actions are. And if we want our adversaries like Russia are attempting to divide us. And one of our strategies is to transparently expose their tactics so that the world is aware of them. So that's why we released this report. Go ahead.
On the president's interview, he said on taxes that anybody making more than $400,000 will see a small to a significant tax increase. To clarify, did he mean individuals or households? Because it wasn't very clear. And Secretary Yellen, I think, has referred to households before.
Families. Yeah.
Okay, not individuals.
Good. Oh,
And then one
go
other
ahead.
thing on schools that I didn't get to ask the secretary, but I know the White House is committed to trying to open schools 5 days a week. How many hours a day would that include? Are you pushing for full school days 5 days a week?
Yep. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm very drawn to the green. I'm sorry. Go ahead. And the red and the green. Go ahead.
The president said in the Oval Office he didn't. I'm going back to Atlanta, and then I want to ask you another question on the border. But the president said in the Oval Office he didn't want to make a connection on the motivation of the shooter in Atlanta. But to broaden it out, why does the president think attacks on Asian Americans are increasing in this country? Why does he think that's happening?
Well, he wanted to be very clear because there's an ongoing FBI investigation, right? And he didn't want to attribute motive. There are law enforcement authorities who do that, and it's important to note when the investigation is concluded or not. So that was a bar he was working to respect there. I think there's no question that some of the damaging rhetoric that we saw during the prior administration, blaming, calling COVID, the Wuhan virus or other things, led to, perceptions of the Asian American community that are inaccurate, unfair, have raised, threatening, has elevated threats against Asian Americans. And we're seeing that around the country. That's why even before the horrific events of last night, he felt it was important to raise this issue, elevate it during his first primetime address, why he signed the executive order earlier in his presidency. And he will continue to look for ways to elevate and talk about this issue moving forward.
The president said yesterday he does not have plans to visit the border. Why not?
Because his focus is on action and taking actions and moving forward policies to ensure we are expediting the processing at the border, that we are opening more facilities, that we are putting in place policies that will move kids more quickly through the Border Patrol facilities, more quickly into safe and secure homes. And that's where his focus is.
He doesn't want to get a first-hand look down there himself and talk to officials there. How is he getting updates?
He talks to plenty of officials, and he also has received a briefing with photos and directly from his team who went and visited the border and went to a range of facilities.
How frequently is he getting updates on some of the numbers of people who are being taken in, and how frequently is he talking to officials that are down there who are getting that first-hand look?
Well, he's getting updates. I mean, sometimes it's a part of his PDB. He gets updates regularly. I mean, several times a week. It's an issue that is front and center for him. And certainly he's asking questions in a range of meetings with senior officials about progress that's made, about systems that he thinks should be unstuck, about looking for more creative ideas to help ensure these kids are treated, they are put into safe places, and that the work is expedited at the border. Go ahead.
Jen, there's a report out that the president